One of the problems you find a lot with photography is the colors are not exactly what you intended them to be, or they do not quite match what you were taking a photograph of. Sometimes they turn a little yellow. Sometimes you maybe get something that's a little too blue. You also find this a lot with older photographs. I know that my parents' photographs from their wedding and from our childhood tend to be a little yellower because of the photo paper quality. Sometimes they're developed incorrectly. And these are some simple techniques, what we're about to do, in order to fix the color and make it so that it looks how you intended it to look when you took the picture. So for the archway, this is a little too yellow. The green is not really the green we want of a plant. The stone is supposed to be kind of a tan color, and it looks a lot more yellow than it should. So we're going to come over to our adjustments menu here on the right, and we're going to do a color correction or a color balance fix. If you dig back into your memory and go all the way back to your basic art classes, if we remember the color wheel, everything that was opposite on the color wheel was the perfect complement to that color. So Photoshop here is kind of arranged that this cyan or a green is the opposite of this red in color photography and RGB coloring, which is what we're in. Magenta and green and yellow and blue. So because mine is a little too yellow, what I want to do is I'm going to add some blue, and I'm just going to do a little bit at a time so I can see as I go how it works. And if you see it's starting to kind of fix the colors, sometimes it's a little bit of a trial and error. Sometimes you have to kind of play with it. If you go too far, it's going to become a little too blue. So you kind of want to get a nice balance. And I like to pick one spot and kind of wait for that spot to look more realistic. So about 54 is about right. I'm also going to, if I wanted to add a little bit more green, again, a little bit less is not okay. If you wanted to add, for this I'm actually going to add a little bit of magenta just to kind of warm it up a little bit. Not much. If you see, it's just a real subtle enhancement. You can come in here and add some red if you thought it got a little too cool, or you could add some blue if it's a little too warm. For this one, I really don't need to add either one because I like the way the colors look right here. What I love about these adjustment layers is it puts it in its own separate layer, and it leaves the object, which is my background, alone. So my picture is still the way it always was, but I can just add these, and which is nice is I can add one, and if I don't quite like it, I can take it off without having to start over. The other thing I'm going to add on here is a brightness and contrast adjustment. If you see, it just popped up a new layer. And I'm going to turn my contrast up. If you remember, contrast is the difference between light and dark. So what I want to do is I'm going to turn my dark colors darker and my light colors lighter. Now, with anything else, less is more. So you don't want to go too far, because if it gets too far, it starts to look fake. And if you have not enough contrast, it looks a little washed out. So again, just a little bit, just enough to add in, and I'm going to pop up the brightness just a little bit to give my photograph just a little bit more light. Almost every photograph I edit, I'm always going to adjust the contrast. It's just something I do automatically because I think it looks a little bit better. And now there is our color balanced, contrast, and brightened archway.